For months, Jeff Perry has ducked accusations about illegal strip searches. Now one of the victims breaks her silence. Is it a game changer in the race for the 10th? And his gowns have lavished First Ladies and Hollywood elite. A look at some of Arnold Scazzi's creations. That and more, now on Greater Boston. Good evening. It's been an issue in the race for the 10th Congressional District from the start. But today, a victim of an illegal strip search came forward, releasing a statement that says Republican congressional nominee Jeff Perry did nothing to stop his former police partner from conducting an illegal strip search. This on the heels of an exclusive WGBH poll that showed Perry in a virtual dead heat with Democratic challenger William Keating. But this could be a game changer. Political reporter Adam Riley has more.
In a statement released to the Boston Globe, Lisa Allen says Jeff Perry should have come to her aid when she was sexually assaulted by Officer Scott Flanagan in 1991. It upsets me that Jeff Perry can run for Congress after what he did to me when I was 14 years old, Allen says. Perry knew what Flanagan did. He had to hear me screaming and crying. Instead of helping me, Jeff Perry denied anything happened. This bombshell comes as a new WGBH poll shows Perry and Democrat Bill Keating in a dead heat, and amid a barrage of ads mentioning the strip searches.
Imagine your teenage daughter illegally strip searched by police. It happened repeatedly in Wareham. Jeff Perry was the supervising officer at the scene during one assault, another assault he just tried to explain away.
In a response, Perry says his heart goes out to Allen for what Officer Flanagan put her through. But right now, that may be a tough distinction for Perry to make.
All right, and joining me now are Republican State Senator Bob Hedlund, former Democratic State Senator Warren Tolman, and political strategist Dan Payne. Welcome to all of you. Well, Bob, Jeff Perry's in your district. You were saying that his presence there is everywhere, signage. I mean, is this going to be damaging to him?
Well, it can't help. I mean, he has, as you note, has been a pretty good, strong presence he's had in my district. He's run a pretty good campaign, very active campaign, very aggressive campaign. He's pretty much a dynamo out on the campaign trail, a lot of energy, good organization. I think he's doing very well in the northern part of the district where I represent my Senate district. But this certainly has to hurt. I know that some are rallying around with the Scott Brown ad that's running on radio today. But I can leave it to some of the other political pundits to, determine exactly how damaging this is going to be, especially depending upon how the Keating camp tries to put this information forward. I'm sure it's going to result in some kind of a television ad because both of the candidates here, both Perry and Keating, are sitting on a pretty good chunk of change that I think is probably earmarked for television in the last couple of weeks.
Are you suspicious about the timing of this at all?
Well, I am very suspicious about the timing because I've heard rumors that one of the women involved in these incidents from some time back was prepared to come forward. I've heard that rumor as far back as June, quote unquote. They were ready to wheel one of the women out. Was the word that I got around town, and I would think that there was a reason, if so, to wait until after the primary. Obviously, this is the October surprise that we hear about, but I suspect just based on the rumors I heard, and they were rumors, that makes the timing suspicious. But the fact is, she was one of the people involved in this and has issued a pretty strong statement.
Yeah. I don't think we should deal with rumors and suspicion or anything else about what's behind this. What Jeff Perry did is reprehensible. It's one of the most morally repugnant things as the father of two teenage girls that I have ever heard anyone involved in politics engaged in. When you're wearing that badge and you're sworn to protect and serve people, and you're standing by when a 14-year-old girl is screaming and yelling, and you do nothing, and then you try to cover it up by her testimony, and here 19 years later, you think this girl wants to come out and talk about this now? She wants that chapter closed.
Well, you're talking about a blue coat of silence. I mean, that's what cops do.
Well, there is a blue coat of silence,
but Warren, honestly, the language in the statement today that this woman, Lisa Allen, that's her maiden name, it's exactly the same language that Bill Keating uses. He didn't protect teenage girls. What do you mean he didn't protect me? I mean, it was very scripted, I have to say.
You know, somehow we want to attack the victim
no,
here.
I'm just saying
let's look at the conduct
there's a
of this
political
guy.
overtone to this.
Well, you know what? Bill Keating was using the victim's statement from 20 years ago, and the victim, I'm sure, referring back to it, used their own statement from 20 years ago. So it's no surprise that they would be relevant. But this is a guy, you know, his captain says, you know, in one word, he said a couple weeks ago, don't vote for him. This is a guy that lied on his bar application.
But then the police chief came out and endorsed him.
But there's a pattern here. He lied on his bar application, not 10 years ago, last week to the Cape Cod Times talking about it. He lied to Janet Wu at Channel 5. You know, he said he went to a diploma mill, Columbia State University, and had a 3.8 GPA. He got it all in a couple months.
Okay, well,
you know, he was everything but captain of the football team in 2 months.
Dan,
it's ridiculous.
Take a swipe at this, because all of that has been known to the voters in the 10th.
Not known to everybody.
Yeah.
I had lunch with a woman today who's politically active.
Well, that's crazy that people don't know. I mean, it's their own fault because they're ill-informed. But it's all been out there. We took this poll this week. People seem blasé about it. Will this, though, push them?
This is very big because you have a victim standing up. Regardless of what words she used, just the fact that she's willing to come forward. This has got to be a very difficult thing for her to do at her age. It's got to be a terrible memory for her about what happened. And so it took some guts for her to do it. I don't think she's going to continue to be part of the campaign. But this has been, you know, I disagree a little that this has been out there a lot. In the primary, Joe Malone talked about the strip search, but he didn't run any commercials about it. So the first time there were any commercials informing the district of what had happened were when Bill Keating started, which was only a couple of weeks ago.
Tremendous amount of media coverage. Tremendous amount of media coverage from the Boston Globe, the Cape Cod Times. I mean,
but that was a Republican audience that was judging Republican
Joe
candidates.
Malone actually did advertise it. He did at least 2 direct mail pieces to Republican primary voters.
I meant TV or radio.
But highlighting this.
We didn't even know about that.
But the problem is, it was until now kind of like a very convoluted he said, she said situation.
Right.
And not everyone is like a Warren Tolman and is going to go and look at some of the records that are out there on this case that's available to the public online. And there's been a couple of media outlets that have put them up online. This is different, because Deanna says, and it puts kind of a human face on this, and it crystallizes the issue in simple terms that the average voter can understand, which makes it tough.
Right. He's saying this is mudslinging. He can't accuse a victim
I don't
of slinging
understand
mud
this ad from Scott Brown today. Now, this is a new ad paid for by the Jeff Perry committee, but Scott Brown is endorsing him. He's saying Jeff is a decent and honorable person, my opponent, focusing entirely on negative attacks. I don't know if this came out before or after.
In for a dime, in for a dollar.
Yeah, I mean, he
Brown's
endorsed
already
weeks
endorsed
ago. Months ago, so he's with them.
But you'd have to distance yourself if something like this.
He figures he's stuck with him.
Your counterpart in analysis, Todd Domke, has a piece out today on I don't know what website, but he's saying this is also going to be a problem. Election. That's right. It's going to be a problem for former Governor Mitt Romney too, because Romney has endorsed it, and Romney can't go around attacking Democrats for scandals if he's going to embrace Jeff Perry on this.
Romney has got to hope that Jeff Perry loses. Because if Jeff Perry wins and he's sitting in Congress and this stuff isn't going to go away because it hasn't been vetted or hasn't even been a big issue in Washington, but once Perry comes to Washington, it'll be a totally big issue. And Romney will have to be answering it on the campaign trail. Sarah Palin, Mike Huckabee, Mitch Daniels, they're all going to use this against Romney as an example of his inability to judge character.
And I'm not talking about Senator Hedlund or Senator Brown here, but what Republicans say off the air, off the record, in conversations with me, and I imagine with Dan about this, is very different than what they say when they come to the defense of Jeff Perry on the air, because, as Dan says, in for a dime, in for a dollar. They're with him, they're in bed with him, and they stick with him. But off the air, they're raising their eyes.
There's only one thing Jeff Perry can do, and maybe Keating will ask him to clear his name: take a lie detector test.
He's not
Explain. Well, he may need to do something dramatic like that if this thing keeps festering.
But he's had so many statements over the years, from then and to now, that he's on every side of the issue.
Well,
initially,
why, Bob? You see him all the time in the legislature. I mean, why is this? Is it because the stakes are so much higher? I mean, he's been elected, I don't know how many terms. Four terms.
In the
is it just
House.
because the stakes are so much higher that this is all coming back again? And this happened in 1991, 92.
Well, in his race for the legislature, the information was out there, and his opponent, who was an incumbent at the time, Ruth Provost, tried to raise the issue late when she realized she was in trouble as an incumbent. And you can't introduce it with a few days to go in the election. The press isn't interested when you introduce something like that at the last minute. But I guess the word kind of was out on this thing. But again, it was a convoluted situation that you'd have to really kind of spend a lot of time to sift through to get the
fellow
particulars.
Republican in your district,
right? And he was never. He was the bottom line.
He
was never convicted of anything. Now, yeah, there are questions about leaving the department and all that, which you've raised yourself.
17 days later, he resigned from the department.
Right. So there are a lot of questions, but the fact is, he was never guilty of anything. And I'll just say this in terms of how this changes the race. It creates a dilemma in one sense that there are a lot of people angry about the direction of the country who hold Nancy Pelosi up in a very negative light, who are frustrated over the spending in Washington, immigration policies, and Jeff is speaking to them. And I think that's the one thing that's going to save him, is that I think in that district issues are really working for him, and he's run a great campaign. So it's going to be very interesting to see how...
character trumps issues every time.
Well, can you win? Can Bill Keating win just on hammering away on this one issue? I don't know.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to some extent who Bill Keating is. It's just he's not Jeff Perry.
It appeared for a while there that William Keating was on the wrong track here, hammering only that, not delving into the issues. And now it looks like he might have picked the right issues.
He was right.
And he's avoided some issues. He's been wishy-washy on the war. He's been wishy-washy about voting to re-elect Nancy Pelosi. But I got to say one thing, and I think Dan will agree, and I don't know about Warren here. In the primary, when these issues were raised, one of the greatest assets that Jeff Perry had were the Brown and Romney endorsements, the two probably most popular Republicans nationally, and especially in Massachusetts, that insulated him to a degree, because you had Republican primary voters saying, well, if those guys stepped up, then probably there isn't as much there as some people are saying.
I'll agree, but now they own the guy, and they're going to have to defend him because he's in an indefensible position right now.
And it's not a Republican primary anymore. No. It's the general election.
He didn't do well with women in our WGBH poll, and I suggest that he's not going to do... He's going to even do worse with women after this.
I as a father, I don't know how a father of teenage daughters could vote for this guy.
Really, I think you're holding Romney to a tough standard, though, in a sense. I mean, yeah, he endorsed them. They're fellow Republicans. They served together, obviously, under the dome at the same time. You know, you could hold Deval Patrick to the same standard and say, what about the Diane Wilkerson endorsement? You know, you got to cut a little bit of slack on those
Romney,
type of
in the
endorsements.
middle of the scandal in the summertime, Romney came to his defense and has come to his defense several times since the thing broke.
We'll see what happens
what about
now
you, Bob?
with
You're
this.
a Republican. He's in your district. What are you going to do?
I like his voting record, and I'd like to see him in Congress, but these issues are somewhat troubling to me, too, yes.
I would think so. All right. Bob Hedlund, Warren Tolman, Dan Payne. Thanks. And a reminder to stay with WGBH for the remainder of the political season. Monday, we will be sponsoring the final gubernatorial debate moderated by former ABC News anchor Charlie Gibson. Watch it live right here at 7 o'clock Monday. And when we continue, a Nobel Prize winner tackles the toughest issue of our time, stubborn unemployment.